at the November meeting, and they were also online on the DNR site. Any additions or corrections to the amendments as they were presented? Very good. Motion second to approve the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. Mr. Ames, we are ready for your monthly report.
Good morning. Actually, it's required what you're going to do next week. I've been a number of times talking about the things we're doing with our rivers program. Get it a little bit more organized and connected all the different aspects of what we do with rivers here at the Department of Natural Resources. We're about to come out with a plan for that based on a value stream mapping event that was held send out the gathered information largely we have just completed a best management practices we might use to restore streams and rivers to a more functioning system. We sent out an announcement just yesterday that we have hired and will begin just for an 18-month period of time an individual that's going to be joining us to help with the mitigation program that we have. In 2008, the Corps of Engineers instituted a new rule that requires a lot more mitigation for stream systems that have been altered than we've ever done in the past. And a number of states have adopted a method, if you will, a scoring method to look at those alterations so that you determine here's what the degrading things that took place, and likewise score here's a place where we can improve stream downstream of that particular degradation or in a nearby stream, and use kind of the same point system. So what it does is really streamlines the mitigation process. It's something that's already required by the Corps of Engineers. What we're doing is suggesting a method of that be done here in Iowa that would be much more expeditious for those people that find themselves needing that assistance. And this individual will be helping with that. What we also like to do is develop a new program that will take that point system and convert it to a set of dollars. So if the Department of Transportation needs, for instance, and we've been working very closely with them on this, if the Department of Transportation determines, okay, here's X number of points of the damage that we've done with a stream by putting in this new roadway, we can convert that to a number of dollars and then go over here and use those dollars to actually restore some of that. So we're going to give you a little bit more of a helpful presentation and I can explain that a little bit further next month. It's something that's coming along quite nicely. The other thing is the 30-year celebration. We're closing in on how we intend to go about that and kind of the timelines we're going to use. And we had another meeting on that yesterday afternoon. And so we'll look forward to sharing that with you next month as well. And I think both of those programs, because they cross both the Con and Rec as well as the Environmental Services divisions in the department, it'll be a good opportunity for both commissions to hear about at the same time. So looking forward to that. Just wanted to surprise you, if you will. I'm not sure which one will be the case, but over the course of the next number of months, well, in the last number of months, we've not seen too many Attorney General referrals over the last year. There have been a number of referrals from the field office to Ed Shop, to our legal staff, that as we look at those, considering the technicality and the gravity of the situation and the financial benefits that were derived by certain people and different activities, that responding to the enforcement activities on those things kind of goes beyond our ability administratively to do it. So over the course of the next 6 months, you are probably going to be seeing more Attorney General reports coming your way than what we have had in the past. So I just wanted to let you know that, so that when they come and gee, what's going on? They're not in any particular program. They happen to meet in a wide variety of sewage treatment, to asbestos, to a fish kill, just a whole host of things. And anyway, just wanted to let you know, so that as it comes over the course of the next number of months, you're not going to be totally surprised. And finally, you recall we talked about the complaint that we received from the Iowa citizens about the improvement last month, and kind of give you a little bit of a recap of that. I've asked Kelly Cook. We've had an incredible response from the field offices, three field offices that were identified in those 5 months, to dig through our records and come up with a response. Got that back to ICCI, and so I've asked Kelly Cook to be here today to give a presentation on that response, as well as to give a little bit more details on the no management plans and the role of manure and agronomic and stuff. She's going to be assisted by Jeremy Clark from our field office here in Mason City, and Dan Anderson from Iowa State University. So with that, Kelly, I will turn it over to you.
Does anybody have any questions for Bill? Jeremy and Dan are going to talk a little bit about manure management plans. And before we get started,
it's projecting on the wall.
That's fine. I think you've all dealt with some manure management plan issues at the commission, but they are updates and plans that we use for our animal feeding operations to make sure that we have enough production land to apply our manure in safe rates. Animal feeding operations are required to submit an original MMP and an annual update every year, and then every 4 years they must submit a complete MMP with a phosphorus index. Who needs a management plan, a manure management plan? Any confinement animal feeding operations expanded or constructed after May 31st, 1985. We still do run into a few facilities that were constructed before that don't have plans. They don't need them because they were grandfathered in. Those are becoming fewer and farther in between. Confinement feeding operations with capacity of 501 animal units or more. That's about 1250 in swine and 500 in cattle. This is an important part to remember moving into looking at our response to ICCI's complaint. Who doesn't need MMPs? Small animal feeding operations, so 500 animal units or below, open feedlots, and then also another category is the 200A idols facility permits. Some facilities get permits where they can sell their dry manure, so those facilities also do not need MMPs. So, as Bill said, we received a request for information in May of last year on 5 different counties, and that came to about 300 MMPs. What happened was our field offices in those areas pulled all of the MMPs. They just pulled MMPs for the 5 counties. They brought them to Des Moines. Our record center here scanned them all, and then in June, I believe, we provided the CDs to ICCI. In November of this year, several members of the department met with ICCI. We were presented with the complaints. And then we took those complaints back to our field offices that had the counties, which are field offices 3, 4, and 5. And what they did is they went back and they pulled all of those MMPs. First, they verified that we had an MMP for the facility on, and then they went through and they looked through all of the documents to make sure that the documents were there. And then in December, first week of December, we did respond and send our response to ICCI, and I believe you also received a copy of the response.
One of the first claims was that there were 91 manure management plans missing and not received as part of the records request. When we looked through this, of those 91 facilities, 57 of the facilities did not need manure management plans at all. 46 of those facilities were open lots, so they didn't require an MMP. 4 of those were small animal feeding operations, they didn't require an MMP. 4 of those were combined open lots and small animal feeding operations, they also didn't require an MMP. Excuse me. 2 of the facilities were IDOL's 200A facilities, they didn't require an MMP. And then, excuse me, 1 of the facilities was an open feedlot, so it had an NPS permit, and so it also had a nutrient management plan. 1 of the facilities out of the 91 at the time of the request was a 200A facility and then converted to an MMP after the review. So we did provide that MMP with our response. The last 33 are somewhat of a mystery to us, and I'm going to say that way. We scan them. Our record center has proof that they scan them. We believe that we provided them on a disk to ICI. ICI doesn't believe they received it, but what I want to take away is that these 33 facilities, they were in compliance. They had MMPs, and we have scanned those and provided them once again to ICI. Claim 2, that there were some MMPs provided but not in our database. At one point or another, these 5 facilities, they need an MMP. But now those 5 facilities were either not constructed or they dropped below the MMP threshold. So they no longer are in the public access part of the database. So that's why that would be the reasoning why those are not available to see on the database. The third claim was several facilities had missing documents or insufficient data in the MMP. Most of these documents, and this is where our field offices spent a large amount of their time reviewing, they were present or it wasn't required to be included in the first place. We did find some facilities that had missing documents. For those facilities, what we have done, and the field offices I think can account for that, we've either called them or written them letters requesting the information. We are getting the information. Where appropriate, we will take enforcement action if necessary. But a large number of the claim documents missing were written agreements between the producer and the landowner. But what was left out was anytime there's a written agreement, it's not required if the land is owned or rented for crop production by the confinement feeding operation owner. And that's what we found for many of these missing rental agreements. They didn't have to have them in the first place. Another claim was that many MMPs list the same application fields, resulting in over-application of manure on single fields. There is no rule in the department's rules that prohibit from using the same application fields in multiple MMPs. You can list them in your MMP. We don't have one single complaint of that over-application, so we weren't able to go out and look at that specifically, but we haven't had any enforcement actions for any type of that violation. And what we're going to do to monitor this in the future is to watch for that. And if we do get complaints, we will go out and look at the production records and compare and make sure that we're not getting any over-application on any of the fields. And we would do that even if, there was just one MMP for the field. We would want to make sure that there wasn't over-application. And then the final complaint, and this is what Jeremy is going to talk about most, problems with the P-index and the Russell 2. These calculations are reviewed when we do construction permit reviews and when we do on-site inspections. And they have the producers fix problems when they find them. And in closing, we had 4 more areas of concern. Enforcement, and our response to enforcement is since 2006 we've done 107 administrative actions, and I believe 12 Attorney General referrals for MMP violations. the compliance program has improved over the years. We started out with, I don't know, what, 40, 50 a year. We're down to maybe 5, and most of those are late middle of their MMP update. We did have one this year of applying 2 fields improperly, which should have been in their plan. Another issue that ICI raised is they'd like the manure application records to be public. This is in the Iowa code as holding these confidential, so that would require a code change. Training, it's important to note that all of our field office personnel who work in MMPs are trained and they receive ongoing training. That includes the administrative assistants and the environmental specialists. And then lastly, the inspections and audits. We conduct 2 types of MMP inspections. We review the MMP, the administrative assistants review the MMP or update submittals when they come in, and then we do on-site inspections as well. And those are conducted by our environmental specialists. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy, but if you have any questions about the report, I can answer those, or answer them at the end as well. Sure.
How was the request raised? You said that there were 57 plans that didn't require how were those even included in the presentation?
How were they included in the...
Right. I mean, how is it graded? If you're providing MMPs and they get need MMPs,
Sure.
why are they asking for these?
Well, that I think what happened was they showed up in our database, and part of the request was we need MMPs for these facilities. Obviously, we don't have MMPs for those facilities because they're open feedlots, but they are in the database because they're regulated facilities. So I think that's where those came from as part of their request. That would be my guess.
And later in our meeting today, we're going to be talking about fees and air quality.
Yes.
How much staff time is spent on this? Can you put a dollar amount on it?
I don't know the dollar amount. In the response itself, this response, Field Office 4, which would be one of the counties, I believe, spent about 56 hours of their time. And again, I'm guessing Field Office 3 and Field Office 5 would have spent more than that because they had more than one county involved. And then, of course, my time. But, you know, it is a good review of our program. And in reviewing it, we were happy with what we saw. We did find some minor issues, and we're going to work on those, and we're going to, you know, fix those. But it was a good review of our program. And it told us what we already thought we knew, that it is a good program.
So are plans to create an audit process to dig in a little bit deeper, to periodically just to dig in deep, like 1 or 2 MMPs to make sure that we're missing some of the things that we missed?
Sure.
As far as ongoing.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's anything specific like that, but I think Jeremy can talk to this. But when they do go out on their on-site inspections, they will look at all of the documents in the MMP and make sure that those are correct. And they also will look at application records for the fields. So they do in-depth audits per se once they get out there. And I believe the exact numbers in there, but I think we do over 500 of those a year. But there is, to answer your specific question, I don't think there's a plan to do an audit like this.
There's already an audit happening, you're just going to enhance the methodology a little bit.
Yeah. I'm sorry. And a lot of the missing documents, once we contacted producers, we found that they own the property, or unfortunately some of them were, they had multiple properties and they were filed in the wrong file. So a lot of the documents were actually submitted.
So as you're looking at the application records, is the amount of manure listed about what they put on? Is that, when you're talking about this over application stuff, multiple things, that's part of the process, isn't it? That's my understanding. I just wanted to get that verified. That is, you do look at the application rate.
They would look at it when they went out on their on-site. Yeah.
provision that says if 25 or more citizens allege water or air pollution, we shall follow up. But we do anyway. So in this case, we did follow up. And as Kelly mentioned, we spent, probably if you throw all the hours together, well over 200 hours, close to 200 hours of time following up on that. But as you may know from our referral, most of our cases come from citizen complaints. That's really what generates a lot of our investigations. So we appreciate that and we follow up on it.
No, there was not, and it came from a general records request, which anybody can do. Well, and I believe they did probably get charged for it. We have a fee schedule. So the initial request,
The mayor was asking about
they received the
the
documents.
charges for
Anybody,
a records request.
else could receive those
I'm
documents.
sorry, some of these board members, their
And
mics
that
may not
gives
be
time,
on,
to gather
or they're not
members
close
and
enough to them.
whatever else may be there. Over $600. The rules, yes, they are.
The majority of the concerns they could have answered themselves had we read through it.
The majority of the things that we found were missing, those missing rental agreements. We did find some where they hadn't submitted them. And so the field offices, I just received an update today. Field Office 5 is getting all of their documents in, and Field Office 4 has a few that they are getting in. And to address your concerns, rather than sending, a notice violation right away, they did call them, and then they'll follow up if they don't receive the documents with the enforcement, notice violation and other documents that might occur. So that was the majority of the documents that were missing were those rental agreements.
Any, all the documents that are required, we're talking less than, or 0.5% that were either not, we didn't have or were in a different file.
I would say maybe 5%. Okay, so what did the number end up being?
There were 14, of the 283, allegations, if you want to call it that were listed that we put in our response. 14 of those, the field offices have followed up. So, slightly less than 5%.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
If we had found some real problems with what we're looking at, then maybe we would do that. Given the fact that we're at 95%, and the deficiency, if you will, was as minor as missing an occasional record probably thought that way. I think that's pretty good.
She is asking about the amount of time
On November 3rd, they
and
asked
the
for a 30-day
duration
response time, which came to December 4th. So it was in that
of the
month.
time
Yes.
needed to do this.
field office. Part of my job duties there are to do inspections of open feedlots, and so I was asked to come and talk a little bit today about the manure management plan portion, I guess, of our inspections, and particularly how the Iowa Phosphorus Index ties in with our manure management plans now. And I guess maybe a key folks should take away from this is kind of the relationship between erosion and the IOP index. Kind of fits nicer that, you know, the DNR doesn't
P
regulate
stands for
erosion per se,
phosphorus.
but actually that's a pretty important component of the P index. So, you know, kind of an indirect way that erosion does get considered as part of our regulations. So, anyway, so what is the IOP index? It is actually a model that was put together by Iowa State and USDA, NRCS, and actually the Soil Tilt Lab in Ames to address phosphorus concerns. Phosphorus is a key component in crop production, and it's also typically a limiting nutrient in fresh water. So there's definitely a need to keep phosphorus on the land for crop production, keep it out of water resources, it's a limiting nutrient for algae blooms and that kind of thing. So to address this in Iowa, they decided to develop this phosphorus index. So it was a model then developed by Iowa State and NRCS, and then the legislature in 2002 had an initiative to address phosphorus concerns from animal production, and mandated the use of the index in 2002. So that was a bill passed, and then, you know, the DNR was tasked with putting together rules for that. And so in 2004, we had our first confinement start submitting plans that included the phosphorus index, and these existing facilities then were phased in over a period of 4 years. So I think Kelly had a slide that said the manure management plan program started in 1985, and so up until 2004, the manure management plan was strictly consideration of nitrogen, and then with this growing concern about phosphorus, that's when the P index came into play. So for the first 20 years or so, it was all about nitrogen. But yeah, so by 2008, all of the confinements that were required to submit manure management plans were submitting P index manure management plans, and then also, you know, we do have some open feedlots that are required to also have nutrient management plans, and as part of that also they're required to calculate the Iowa Phosphorus Index just like the confinement. So in those open feedlots, anything above 1,000 animal units, and then any feedlot that would have an NPDES discharge permit would be required to put together a nutrient management plan for their land application that includes the phosphorus index. I guess just to address kind of why did they feel like they had to develop this index? You know, farmers regularly sample for phosphorus, so it seemed reasonable that if phosphorus was considered high agronomically speaking in the field, that they should stop applying it. That would be one, you know, rationale, I guess, but the science kind of doesn't really indicate that that's the best approach. Because of the chemistry of phosphorus in the soil. If you keep the phosphorus on the soil, it's not hurting anything. So, for instance, erosion. I guess the main concept to take away from that is you can have high soil test phosphorus. However, if you're not losing a lot of soil, it may not be a problem for, water resources. So the other part of that being that, you know, applying according to nitrogen, with manure according to nitrogen, you can build phosphorus, up in the soil. You're putting more on than is being removed. That might not necessarily be a bad thing, and so that's the idea being, well, let's use this index to figure out how much phosphorus is gonna be leaving soil, and then we can determine whether or not it's appropriate to maybe back off, our manure application rate, so, anyway. Yeah, so I kinda talked about this, and I'm gonna talk about how erosion is a key component of the phosphorus index, and that's just because of how phosphorus reacts in soil. It's very reactive. It tends to stick with the soil. You're not gonna have a bunch of leaching phosphorus through the soil profile into tile lines in front of you. So really, when we're looking at the Iowa phosphorus index, yes, the amount of phosphorus in the soil is important, but maybe even more important is how much soil is leaving the field. So the soil erosion rate is extremely important when we're trying to estimate how much phosphorus is lost. So, and this was a slide that, I'll read off my statement I had, and I thought it was pretty nice, but this kind of tells you, explains how the phosphorus index, considers, how much phosphorus is leaving. So you have three components, three mechanisms that phosphorus can leave a field. It's attached to soil particles with the erosion, you know, and these pictures are kind of sized as to their importance, if you will. So the biggest component is soil erosion. So phosphorus likes to stay attached to soil, so you need to, if you want to control phosphorus loss, you really have to control erosion. So that's the biggest component, typically the most important thing, when in the P-index. Right, the second most important thing would be, phosphorus dissolved in surface runoff, so the middle one there. So, you know, there will be, depending on the soil test, a certain concentration of phosphorus in the runoff water dissolved. So that's also important. It's not as important as erosion, but more important than tile drainage. And so the third component then being that there will be minuscule amounts of phosphorus, I guess, going through the soil profile, and if there's tile lines, you know, being intercepted by the tiles and discharging, but, you know, relatively speaking, that's a pretty inconsequential component compared to erosion. So you see, we consider source factors up there, meaning how much phosphorus there is, soil pH, and then the other half of that needs to be considered is the soil and water conservation practices. So there's a lot of erosion, there may be a lot of phosphorus loss. So you can see kind of how the P-index kind of ties in with erosion. It's really an important piece. So I was going to talk a little bit about highly erodible land. You know, the NRCS will designate fields as highly erodible based on the composition of soil types in the field. And so just talk a little bit about that because, you know, erosion is important. And like I was saying, the P-index really ties really well with controlling erosion because erosion is a key component of because of the ability for there to be, you know, the installation of terraces to control erosion, buffers. Also, you know, the phosphorus index will consider if there's not much available phosphorus in the field, that's gonna be reduce the risk of P loss. And also if you're miles from a stream, less of that phosphorus is still going to be deposited in the water. So anyway, the key takeaway I guess on that is HEL designation shouldn't really prevent manure application, but the Iowa P index will make a calculation and determine if it's appropriate in terms of phosphorus to red line would represent, this is just an imaginary field close to a stream, but you can see that on that red line, if you're starting place is 7 tons of pipe, you're going to get restricted on your manure application with a lot lower soil test compared to if you were at a lower erosion rate, like 3 tons per acre. So again, it kind of just reinforces, I guess, the fact that the erosion rate is a key component to this whole process. Anyway, then a little line there for optimum soil test. That's the optimum by Iowa State recommendations. They would say, okay, you're about right where you need to be for crop production. But like I was saying before, we can justify, I think, continued nitrogen-based application in some circumstances when you're not losing a lot of phosphorus from the field. So that's kind of what I was illustrating there. You might still have low phosphorus loss even though your soil test is above what's considered optimum by agronomic standards. So anyway, so yeah, like I was saying, the legislature 2002 passed so then DNR put together some rules, and I guess the way it kind of works out now is that every field that shows up in a manure management plan or a nutrient management plan has to go through this P index calculation. Calculate the soil erosion rate, take credit for any conservation practices, and then they base their application on what the results of that P index comes out to be. So, and then DNR field office staff, as Kelly had mentioned, whenever we're doing these work plan inspections where we're going out to lots of these facilities, well, lots of these clients, they are manure management plans, so we will look at that P index, look at the soil test, look at their Russell to, make sure that everything looks like it's, makes sense. And, if we find problems, we will, require that they make updates to their plan to accurately reflect what's going on. So we have that piece, the on-site inspections, and then anytime we get a new permit application, as part of that process, we'll also dig into that phosphorus index and make sure that they're making the calculations right before the building gets built. So anyway, that's kind of how our procedure is. And then once the facility is built, any changes that would impact the phosphorus index, we're required to make that change immediately. So if they're changing their crop rotations or tillage practices, they're supposed to update the Russell 2 erosion calculation and phosphorus index immediately, and then they would apply based on their new phosphorus index value. And any new fields, they get added over time, they would have to calculate the P index again prior to any manure application. So even if there's no changes, one thing that's always going to change is regulations require soil testing every 4 years to, track how much soil phosphorus is in the field. So every 4 years, even if nothing else changes, they'll be plugging in their new soil test values and submitting that to us. And then, so basically they'll calculate their P index in their plan, and they'll say how much manure they can apply. So if their P index comes very low, together by the DNR or that work with the P index worker, the Iowa State and what have you, so low or low. Well, the work group said, well, there'd probably be a small impact to, so in that case, DNR said, well, when you're that low, you can continue with nitrogen-based manure management, as you always have, with no consideration with the amount of phosphorus applied. So, in that circumstance, phosphorus may build up over time, but, soil testing in the future would obviously catch that. And then there's the medium category where, it's more than low or very low. The work group said, well, it may produce some. Well, at that point, we decided we want some consideration of the amount of phosphorus being applied because we don't want to see a very rapid buildup because of the potential for loss to the water resources. So in that case, it's they can either do a nitrogen-based rate, but they also have to consider phosphorus crop removal. So they can't apply more than twice the crop removal, which in essence would kind of limits how much soil P would build up over time. So medium category, for instance, to this field that has very high P index, there's incentive to, install conservation practices and bring down that value so they can spread manure around. So anyway, I think that's all I have. If you guys have any questions? Yeah. Well, I can only speak for the field office I'm in, which I'm up in north central Iowa, so we're flatlanders, so we almost always see nitrogen based. But just talking with other inspectors, they do run into some phosphorus based plants in some of those hillier fields.
Is it true that because of that there's a lot less phosphorus in manure than what?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that used to be the problem. The big problem was that it would build up quickly over time, but yeah, the pork industry kind of adjusted their rations and kind of balanced out, if you will, the phosphorus and reduced it almost too much, I think, what I hear from some farmers.
You said that 4-year plan is soil test and send you results, right?
They don't send us the results, they send us their updated calculations. Yeah.
Do you ever do those soil tests on your own?
No, we don't. No. We would look at their soil test results, but we've never taken soil samples of our own. Yeah.
Slightly deficient if you're running a commercially location. So changes in how we fed pigs brought phosphorus down a lot. Alright, so I'm Dan Anderson. I work in the Ag and Biosystems Engineering Department at Iowa State University. So Jeremy talked to us about the P index, and I'm not going to get into detail about that, but when I look at phosphorus, things that we have control over, the vegetation, the amount of disturbance that we have, and then there's some things that we don't. So apply more fertilizer, or provide more input, we're gonna get the same amount of expense back. Basically because we're hurting our soil health, and we rely on our soils pretty heavily. So in the last few years, we've had a lot of interest in what can we do to improve our soils, improve health. And I think we've heard a lot of topics with that. But when I think of soil health, what it really implies to me is we're talking about soil organic matter, feeding the microbial system, feeding that living system. So healthy soils store carbon. Depleted soils basically aren't as good at it. So when we think about healthy soils, there's a lot of things that they provide, both from a cropping standpoint and from an environmental standpoint. They might have better till, so that means they have a structure that's better for plant root growth, better for holding water, better for letting air move through the soil. And when I look at the three main properties that are concerned both agronomically and for the environment, it really comes down to soils with organic matter, hold water better, so we're more resilient to drought. Maybe that makes us more resilient to flooding as well. Less needs to go down to the rivers quickly, something you store in the field. They tend to have higher hydraulic conductivity, so water can move through them more easily. So we have as much ponding, opportunity for crop loss. And then carbon is really the glue in the soil. So if we have higher organic matter levels, we tend to hold that soil together, hold the structure a little better, and it's less prone to erosion. So just a little bit of an illustration on that. If we look at something where we have an uncompacted soil with some stable aggregates, it'll hold up to that water, raindrops, they're sort of like cannon shots to the soil. They can't really disturb it and wreck that structure, but if we have a healthy soil with that glue in it, it's resistant to that breakdown of those aggregates, and the water can get in more easily. On the other hand, if we have a less healthy soil, something where the water will break down those aggregates, maybe we get a crust, more runoff, more potential for erosion. So soil health really means feeding the microbes, and it comes down to carbon, and two types of carbon: stable carbon, organic matter that's going to be in the soil for hundreds of years, and then very labile carbon, something that the microbes are going to consume very quickly. And both types are really important to us. So when we think about the methods to increase soil carbon, we really don't have that many options. It really comes down to we either need to add more organic matter, or we need to do things to try and slow the decomposition of organic matter. So reduced tillage is really in that slowing the decomposition, trying to give the microbes less opportunity to break it down. But the other things we talk about are really trying to add carbon, whether that be putting perennials on the landscape, thinking about cover crops, where we're going to have more plant matter available to microbes, or performing a manure application, coming back and adding that organic matter with manure. So all those are really good sources of labile carbon, and that's really important to us because that fires up microbial activity. And the microbes are what's giving us sort of the glue to hold particles together. So if we don't have that glue, we might have something that's pretty easy to disperse, something where raindrops can break it apart very easily, causing more erosion. If we get that glue, it'll hold those particles together, even if we get larger rain, and that protects them. It's harder to move a bowling ball than it is to move a softball across the soil, right? So if we can keep those particles bigger, less erosion will run. Some real world examples of what that might look like if you look at some soil. The soil on the left there is something that it's nice and fluffy. We have some relatively large aggregates there. Hopefully that's a healthy soil that's not prone to as much erosion. On the right you see a soil that had some rainfalls and formed a crust. And if we think about what that means, if you have that soil on the left, water can move in a lot more easily. We won't have surface ponding, we won't have as much water flowing over the surface causing that erosion. Where on the surface on the right, it's hard for water molecules to get through that crust on top. It's really very slowly permeable. So that might mean more surface runoff, more phosphorus with that runoff, or more erosion. So there's been a lot of research on can we use manures to build soil organic matter, and the general take home is we're pretty confident that as you add more carbon to the soil with the manure, we're going to increase soil organic matter levels. My general rule of thumb is about 12% of the organic matter that's in manure will become soil organic matter. So it's a proven practice for building up organic matter in our soil. And that's true for all types of manure, whether it be a slurry swine manure, a solid poultry manure, a beef manure, a dairy manure. It doesn't really matter which type. Certainly if we have a solid manure, we might be adding more organic matter with each application, but all of them, about 12% of that organic matter is going to be stabilizing our soil, helping build healthier soils. So the take home here is manures really can be an important part of building soil organic levels. And if we look at privately erodible land. That's an area where oftentimes the soils are already depleted. And that might be a good reason to think about what can we do to bring those soils up, make them more productive. And the North play a role in that. From an environmental perspective, healthier soils, carbon-rich soils, tend to make the soil erosion more productive, and help us with water, especially in terms of resilience to drought or flooding. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. I agree. I think Manure is a great resource. When you look at Iowa, there's $1 billion worth of nitrogen phosphorus capacity in our manure. I think that's a great opportunity for our state. That's not even counting the potential of organic matter, soil building to go with it.
First is that, I do appreciate, ICCI bringing this, their questions forward, is I never think it's a bad thing for, citizens to question a government agency. Second is that, I know it's an internal review, so that there are times that people can question, the result. But I will say that I've had a 20-year relationship with the DNR through my place of business. Since I've been here since May, is that I've developed these relationships with a lot of DNR staff, and is that I do trust them. And I don't think that they've given me anything, or any reason not to trust, any presentation that I've been a part of since May. And I do believe in Kelly, and what she says is that the minor issues that they did find is that they will fix it. Once again, I appreciate ICCI, asking the questions, not only this year, or any other year.
Are you closed up the question on my non-enforcement?
represent the item on our agenda today that you are going to be addressing and whether you are for or against it into our record. Chris Peterson will be the first person up, and following Chris will be Justine Stevenson. Agreement, I can agree with that. I can agree with that. And if you'll help us.
Good morning, everybody. With all respect, my name's Chris Peterson, independent pig farmer, South Dakota Lake, Iowa. Past president of Farmers Union, I work with all kinds of different groups and organizations around Iowa, CCI. I'm a traditional independent pig farmer, I've said that a lot. I don't like what's going on in rural Iowa. And, we have a water problem. And over the years, the DNR, the EPC, huge bureaucracy, it seems like the problem is not getting resolved. We're not getting the outcome that we desired for whatever reason. There needs to be changes. And that's the fact as far as I'm concerned. Water quality in the eyes of the public in this state and this nation, second to last, is an embarrassment. And it seems like you just keep issuing more permits, getting more of these operations, kind of like the ever-ready money you see on TV. It just doesn't end.
Actually, the Energizer Bunny.
And, funding might be part of the problem, but I don't buy that as an excuse. And, CPC, DNR, I realize you guys got a boss too. And the governor's pension, I think he needs to.
Yes, I am not muted.
Get out and talk to some people a little more than he does. But, there needs to be changes, and you need to get your house in order. Things are not working. Voluntary compliance for water quality, whether it's or runoff, it's not working. Last few days here, we've had some real heavy rain events. You guys know what's going on. I'm sure they don't do as a farmer. It's always been leaking stuff that should never be filled. Oil moves, everything else. Just no water. And there's things we need to do. We can have voluntary compliance up to a certain threshold, but there's things that need to be mandatory before we turn these things around. And it's Christmas season. I ask people not to be a Scrooge. And I think you guys are not. I think of people, rural families, people who have to live by these things, have health impacts, odor issues. It's not right. Things need to be done. We need to slow down, take a pause, and figure it out. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Justine Stevenson, and I work for the Iowa Cattlemen's Association. On behalf of our members, I would like to highlight portions of today's departmental report regarding the ICCI investigation. The report did an excellent job reviewing the state's rules and regulations regarding livestock feeding operations. Based on animal unit capacity, certain operations require non-compliance. However, there are many basic rules and regulations that exist for livestock operations. Not all farms require manure management plans, but just because a farm does or does not have an MMP or an NMP does not mean that manure is not being applied at agronomic rates. For utilization of operative plans, nutrients are applied based on intended crops and necessary nutrient levels. We have farmers that are using technologies like variable rates, application, GPS, soil sampling voluntarily to determine how those nutrients should be applied to those acres. As Dr. Dan Anderson mentioned, manure has many benefits. ISU research reveals that beef manure reduces phosphorus load by 46%. This adds an environmental incentive to using manure, but also creates that economic incentive as well. Regardless of an operation size or location, if a manure spill occurs, the state of Iowa requires any person storing, handling, or transporting that manure to notify the DNR. Additionally, farms that stockpile open feedlot manure must meet separation distances to tile inlets and water quality sources, and farms that compost dead livestock must also meet separation distances to residences and water quality sources. Finally, NPDES permits are only enforceable if a farm has a discharge that causes a water quality violation. This action is warranted by both state and federal law. The allegations that Iowa livestock producers are skirting regulations and intentionally polluting Iowa's waterways couldn't be further from the truth. As a cattleman's daughter, I recognize Iowa cattle farmers and ranchers as original stewards of the land, managing manure and planning out conservation practices to pass on the farm to the next generation. Thank you.
Katie Olsop, and following Katie will be Shireen Murphy. I take it back, Nicole Kane will be next.
Good morning. My name is Katie Alcott, and I also work for the Iowa Cattlemen's Association. The Iowa Cattlemen's Association represents 10,000 members across our state, and they believe that the Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement's recent report regarding manure use is inaccurate and misleading. The report alleges that manure is being dumped without regard to people or the planet, but Iowa beef producers know that to be false. Iowa cattlemen are dedicated to protecting the land and the water. Over 90% of our producers are family farmers, and many are farming land that has been in their family for generations. These farmers carefully manage their manure and resources to benefit the land, improve their farm's efficiency, and utilize resources wisely, all the while taking steps to preserve water quality. 3 of our cattle producing families submitted comments to us, but were unable to be here today because of their obligations on the farm. So I'm just going to share a brief excerpt from each of those with you. Kelly and AJ Blair live in Webster County with their 2 young children. They're 4th generation farmers on the Blair's family farm. They raise corn, soybeans, hogs, and cattle. In their comments, they state that they, like many other Iowa farmers, have gone above and beyond regulations to implement voluntary practices that improve manure use and conservation efforts on their farms, including more than 8 years of cover crop use. Dan and Abby Martin have 3 young children. They are feedlot operators from eastern Iowa. They had this to say: we recently hosted a manure field day on our farm in cooperation with the Iowa Cattlemen's Association, Iowa State University Extension, and the NRCS. Nearly 2 dozen area cattlemen came out to learn more about calibrating manure spreaders to maximize efficiency of application. As young producers, we're interested in finding ways to make sure our land and legacy is available for our children someday. Tom Heiler, a family farmer from Calhoun County, shared this with us: our crop rotation complements the manure from our cattle system well. Since our operation is an open lot under 1,000 head, by law we are not required to have an MMP or NMP, but that does not mean we do not take managing the manure from our feedlot seriously. These farmers each went on to explain the specific practices they have put in place to improve manure management, water quality, and their conservation efforts. Many of these practices are voluntary, above and beyond what is required. Buffer strips, grass waterways, conservation tillage, cover crops, those have all become common practices on Iowa's farms. And feedlots are incorporating alternative technology systems, manure digesters, and other methods to effectively manage their manure. We ask that you keep these things in mind as you take into consideration ICCI's report and the overall role of farmers in conservation in Iowa. And I'll be submitting my comments as well as the comments from the 3 farmers that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Kane, and following Nicole will be Shireen Murphy.
Good morning, members of the Environmental Protection Commission. My name is Nicole Kane. I'm representing the Iowa Association of Business and Industry. And ABI has about 1,500 member companies, and they represent about 310,000 employees in all of Iowa's 99 counties. I'm here today to briefly talk about items 15 and 16, which is the air quality rules and also the fee schedule. We are officially neutral on the rule and the fee schedule. Since ABI is a diverse membership, we have some very large companies. We also have some very small companies, and depending on what the fees are and what their operations are, whether they would benefit from a flat fee or an hourly is I'll be brief and try not to be
This is
repetitive, but
relating
first
to
I'd like to say
a
thank you to the
different
DNR for their
item
work on this rule,
on
and
the
also for the
EPC
legislation that
agenda.
passed this past year. ABI members have been very vocal. There was comments earlier about the time that DNR spent on the proposal that was just brought forward. And I would say from the air quality perspective, DNR has also spent a lot of staff time working with stakeholders to try to figure out something that will be equal to be for all the stakeholders. And it's not going to be perfect, but we do appreciate the additional time because this is a big change. This is completely changing how fees are collected and what companies are paying in the state of Iowa. And so from ABI's perspective and our members' perspective, we want to make sure that this gets as right as we can get it. So I realize this is probably coming to you a little bit later than everyone would have liked to see, but from ABI and our members' perspective, it was really important to have that additional time to try to work through some of those challenges over the summer and the fall. Just a couple other things that I did want to mention. The rule itself is not about efficiencies. The rule implements new fees. However, as an outcome of the rule and some of the conversations that we've been having with the department, we are pleased to see that there are several efficiencies that are coming up right now. There was a big, long lean event last week that DNR Air Quality Bureau and businesses spent time talking about issues and ways that we can maybe reduce some of the permitting times and control those costs. So again, the rule is about fees. This was going to charge all businesses more, whether they're Title V or whether they're small businesses. It's not about efficiencies, but from ABI's perspective, we hope to continue working with the DNR and continue working with EPC and other stakeholders to keep those fees down and try to find more efficiencies within the department. So thank you for the opportunity.
Stream will pick up and following stream will be Mary Clark.
Good morning, my name is Sheree Ortiz, I'm from Des Moines, and I'm a member of Iowa CCI, the acting board president. You've seen me before, many of you, and quite frankly, I'm not really convinced that you're willing or able to really objectively look at this research and respond in an appropriate manner. Many of the things that Iowa CCI has been talking about, you should have acted on yesterday. I think past behavior is a great indicator of future behavior. You've been unwilling to really support significant fines and penalties to deter repeat offenders. I think if you were really serious, you would have taken action to reel in this reckless industry a long time ago by issuing permits that had been pulled when operators continued to flagrantly pollute. And you resisted that. You would have objected loudly a long time ago that the DNR had a database that was a joke, and so oversight of any kind by anybody was impossible, including this commission. The public still doesn't know what operators actually do with their manure. Those records are closed. Nancy, having access to the rules of MMPs means nothing if we don't know what farmers actually do in practice. You would have to admit, and you would have admitted this a long time ago, that the state of Iowa has become a national cesspool. It's been an embarrassment. Now we're the national cesspool for manure, and we are beholden to the interests of the Chinese with the sale of Smithfield, and we are now trying to manage their manure. Because their young people in China are not having any of this. If you talk to the young people in China, I dare you to go to Shanghai and listen to them. Because that government realizes this game of polluting is about over for them. You would also have to admit that your duty and loyalty was clearly tested before you were given this position. You're not here to protect Iowa water quality. Not really. You're sitting in this chair to protect the industry. This commission also needs to publicly object to a smear campaign full of media-enriched lies and distortion launched against Bill Stowe, general manager of Des Moines Water Works. This is a man who has embraced a moral imperative to protect a precious and shared resource and is willing to put everything on the line to do that. This commission, time and again, lacks the intestinal fortitude to do the right thing.
Mary Clark. Following Mary will be Vern Regan.
I'm Mary Clark. I am a rural Polk County resident. I live on a well. I have a well as my primary source for water. My concern is our great-grandchildren, our grandchildren, and our children. What are we leaving them in this state? I'm concerned about the water issues. 45 years ago, I lived on a polluted well. While I was pregnant with my son, I drank polluted well water. I didn't know it was polluted, and the result was the tragic death of my son. He lived for one day. Consuming water with high nitrate counts, which my well is 4 times the amount of safe human consumption. It was almost 40 parts per million. Results in intrauterine growth retardation, organ failure, and death of the child. My concern is, here we have Uinta County. There are all these green things are manure application that have been filed. The brown areas, which constitute about 75 fields in this Buena Vista County, have multiple manure applications filed to put manure on the same fields. Multiple people have on these brown areas, there's about 75 fields that have said they're going to apply manure, and somebody else is already going to apply manure. They filed applications. Now, since we only have 15 field inspectors in this state from the DNR, how are they going to find out if all of these manure applications, the fields that have manure applications, and they run right next to water sources, most of them are on a water source, how are we going to find out if this is, number one, if they're applying the right percentage, number two, if they're leaking into our water sources? And obviously they are leaking into our water sources because we have 15% increase of polluted waterways in Iowa over last year. We have 725 polluted waterways, and we have almost 9,000 factory farms. I appreciate farmers who live on their farms, they take care of them, but I've got 7 farms here, factory farms, that have polluted violations, water pollution violations on their record, and some of them are 4th violations, some of them are 5th violations, some of them are 2nd violations, some of them did not notify the DNR. Summit Dairy Farm had 1,500 dairy cows, and in August of 2014, he didn't notify the DNR, and it included 28 miles of stream. Now, God bless our agriculture in Iowa, but we have to drink the water, and I ask you to think of these children. What are we leaving them? In 30 years, are they going to have any water, clean water to drink, and clean air to breathe? Thank you.
Following Vern will be Janice Elliott.
Good morning. Lord Zeus and Mel, formerly Carol, and I used to be a farmer. And I'm very glad to hear the things that I applied to my land over 20 years ago that are just beginning to happen now. I was very glad to hear the word organic material coming up. But this commission is in charge of making sure that the DNR keeps our land and our water and our air as perfect as it can be. And with the rains that came down, okay, the P index came up, and also the nitrogen index came up. Yes, we have to have quantities that crops can take up. But when we have rains like we had just this last weekend, the best P index is going out on those rivers and looking at the amount of foam that is going down the river. That is the best P index, loss of P, that can be found. Also, the best organic soil indicator is the amount of below night crawlers. The amount of night crawlers present a better soil health indicator than anything else. All of the counts don't count for anything if you don't have that. So, if we could get an account of how many, I would say the loss of soil and the loss of organic matter was caused by commercial fertilizer, which kills it. In some fields, where commercial fertilizer is applied over years and years, you had to go a long ways to find that, or just any kind of fertilizer at all. But where it's farmed organically, with high organic matter and crop rotation, you will find them in abundance. About the MMPs, and it was said that in a lot of cases, an MMP was not required. Well, why was that not indicated on the MMP? That it was not required? Why is it that MMPs are not standard? The outside cover is standard, but you go inside, it's a hodgepodge of material. There is no order or standard to the MMP. Okay. And with that, I'd ask the EPC to get the data, make everything transparent, and do your duty on your chart.
Janice Elliott, Howard Janice, with Patty, Amy,
My name is Janice Elliott, I'm from Carlisle, and I represent ICCI. Before I start, I want to preface what I was going to say, was I have the highest regard for farmers and those ladies from the Farmers Association. I truly believe in the center of my heart that what is Iowa, its personality, is that we have a heritage of farmers. And so I think it was Cindy, but one of you that visited us said there are a few bad apples out there and they're causing trouble. And I believe that's the problem. And when you've got family farmers that want to turn over their land to their kids and have worked on that farm, I know they're going to take care of it. But if you've got somebody who lives outside of the state and has a farm here and can move it somewhere else, if it's no longer making money, it's a different situation. That's what I consider a factory farm. And the rest of our factories in our nation have laws that govern them. I think factory farms need to have that just for the bad apples. And the second thing I wanted to say is, I'm a gardener, I understand manure, but too much burns crops, the soil can't handle too much. And something's wrong. If I sat here and looked at that presentation today, I think our state was in great shape. But if something isn't working and our waters are polluted, we can't just support what we've been doing. We've got to figure out what's wrong.
Patty McKee, and following Patty will be Sherry Huff.
Hello, I'm Patty McKee, from Des Moines, and I'm a member of CCI. I want to thank DNR for all the work that they did to respond to the CCI report. And I think what it shows is that the state system is not working. That we have 725 impaired waterways, we have toxic algae blooms, we have polluted air. My husband and I were coming back from Iowa City a couple weeks ago. We drove past, I suppose it was a farm that had just had manure put on it, and we were driving by in our car at 70 miles an hour, and it was overwhelming. And we smelled it for like 5 miles. And the Des Moines Waterworks has had to run a nitrification system more time than ever before. To me, it's just saying that the system that we have in place is not working, and that there needs to be more conservation practices, which I know a lot of the family farmers do, but when it comes to factory farms, I don't think they care, and it doesn't really happen. And I think that DNR needs more staffing to really be able to do their job even better. And that there needs to be more funding from the legislature, and that all of this needs to be more transparent. And as always, I speak in memory of my mother's friend, Esther Peterman, whose life was ruined by pollution from a factory farm. And I know that there's many other people in Iowa that have to put up with this for, and they shouldn't have to. And we all should have clean water and clean air in this state. Please do your job. Thank you.
Sherry Fox, and followed by Sherry, we fill us with it. Yes, I'm Sherry Hogg from Anthony, and proud member of Iowa CCI. And wanted to say I appreciate the presentations and the time that was spent. I grew up on a family farm, a hog farm, and I remember Dad, taking the manure spreader out into the field. I know that there is value. Everybody here knows that there is value to incorporating manure into the soil. We're not disputing that, but we're talking about 22 billion gallons of untreated toxic manure that's going onto all of our land. And I understand that even if it's highly erodible land, that maybe manure could be applied, but I think I understood from Dr. Anderson that that's only true if there are buffer zones, if there are strong conservation measures, which are totally voluntary. And I've told you this before, I've driven down the interstate and seen farms where the fields are planted directly up to the edge of a stream and a sharp drop off into the stream. And I'll tell you, with this water, the rain that we've had, it doesn't even have to be a highly erodible field. That manure would go directly into the stream. And so, I understand that if some of those conservation measures are in place, yeah, maybe we can apply anywhere we want to. If those things, that manure is going to be consolidated only in that area where it's going to be of value. We already know, and I read this in the paper all the time, there's a very small percentage of Iowa farmers who are actually incorporating those practices, those conservation practices, into their operation. And that's very appreciated. The fact is, there's way too many that don't. And volunteer will go only so far. Something, at least to some extent, needs to be regulated and enforced. Please do that.
Thank you. Phyllis is up, and following Phyllis will be Suzanne Robinson.
I'm Phyllis Burdick from Ankeny, Iowa. I'm a member of CCI. As a child, I remember my family going to Lake Delhi to go swimming. Of course, there wasn't anymore because the dam broke. And when my children were younger, we used to go to Lake McBride in Iowa City to go swimming. And when we got older, we moved to Ankeny, we used to go to Sailorville. Well, nobody swims anymore. And my husband used to fish a great deal. He doesn't fish anymore. If he does, it's a catch and release thing. If he wants fish to eat, he has to go to South Dakota or Minnesota or Canada. Now, how did this happen? You can put any kind of a spin you want to on this. It's just that our waterways are impaired and they are smelly. And the nitrate system that we have here in Des Moines, it's treated. But we had friends who came last summer, and before I said one word about the water, they were like, "Your water doesn't taste very good." They would go out in the car and get their bottled water to make coffee or drink or whatever. So, can you fix this? We don't want any new spins on this. We want you to fix it.
Suzanne Robinson, and following Suzanne will be Nick. Thank you.
My name is Suzanne Robinson. I live on the south side of Des Moines, and I'm a member of CCI. And I just wanted to say, I am a Des Moines Waterworks ratepayer. I'm concerned about the fact that regardless of what kind of practices farmers are using, it's not working. Because of the nitrates in the water that come into the Des Moines Waterworks and have to be treated. And I guess someone had suggested that the Des Moines Waterworks just build a bigger treatment plant.
I'm sorry, I'm as close as I can get.
That seems
I'm in the
counterproductive
front.
to me. I think it would be better to input the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, and following Nick will be Barb Kovacs.
My name is Nick Shute. I'm from Hardin County. I'm from CCI. I am a former employee of Bruce Tester. I've witnessed several things, such as dump sites, aging and buried, them dumping their oil filters from their mega farm operations there. Let's see here. I've also seen or helped load trucks that take their used tires to Nebraska because they have open ag law that can burn ag tires. Operations like this, they need more oversight. They're absolutely killing us in Hardin County. Contacted Hardin County supervisors who were witnessing umbilical cord situation. They run a lot underneath the roads, through the tiles, through the culverts. Their viewpoint was it reduces traffic on the road. It quits tearing up the road. Well, you turn around and have a tile or a pipe like this, one hook, and you pull through that culvert. Where's that manure in that going? It's dumping on the ground. They're not out there with a mop. They're not out there with a shovel to sweep that up. In these ditches, you got your intakes and your tricks. That's a direct path. You have 500-gallon minute hose. It's staying in the ditch. They're not cleaning that ditch out. So something needs to be done with that. Manure management plan is supposed to tell you where this manure is going, where it's applied. I've witnessed some farms several times transfer manure from one lagoon to the next. If these manure plants are what they're supposed to be, there should not have to be a transfer. If they're transferring from this location to this location, it just compromised what this manure plant here is supposed to do. Now all of a sudden have a lot more manure here to get rid of than what they're supposed to, which I think is a crock. Cover crops, if someone could help me understand, Bruce will apply dry manure to the field this fall, put down a cover crop, which I think is great, and in the spring, over top that same cover crop, he'll implement manure. It'll be knifed in, figured. I think there's a double application for it. Back in around 2010, Bruce built a huge bunker for his cattle operation. It's to house the silage. They cut the silage too deep. Then all of a sudden we had a fish kill of about 3 miles in my area. It was all of a sudden we got introduced to leachate. not manure, but it's the alcohol from the corn. Slap on the wrist, nothing happened to Bruce. A guy out fishing without a license would have had more of a penalty than Bruce received.
That's right. That's right.
Bruce also has a truck wash, he likes to keep his equipment in pristine condition, he likes to show off
Bruce
for his investors.
Bradstetter is also
All
the head
the
of
sediment,
Iowa Board of Regents.
the oil that comes off these trucks, these tractors, the waxes, the soaps go into this pit. That pit goes out on top of the fields. Thank you.
Good job, buddy.
Barb, how involved with the executive? My name's Barb Halbach. I've been coming before the EPC now for 13 years, since 2002. And in 2002, there were 212 impaired waterways. Today, there's at least 725. I was on the manure management committee to help research those manure management plans. And I put my 200 hours in, or whatever it was, for no pay whatsoever. And it cost 50 cents per page to answer a question at the county courthouse to get a copy of somebody's manure management plan. And I personally spent about $300 on this research project, plus my hours. The thing that I saw about the manure management plans was a lack of standardization. You guys all know when you open or when you get ready to submit your IRS form, the one that you bring home for yourself. You open that up, there's your 1040, there's your 943, there's your 1099, there's your 32. When I opened these manure management plans, it could be anything. The front page was all standard, but it could be anything on the inside. It was just a jumble, as somebody referred to it as. And it didn't matter if Pinnacle did it, and it didn't matter if an individual did it. They were all different. And so I think we go a long ways just in requiring some kind of standardization so people can open them and look at them. And I'm not a field officer by any means, and so of course I had to think too, and that was real hard, and try to figure it out. But the people that review the manure management plans when they come in to the field offices should be able to open those up. They should, like I said, be standardized. And then I think that the person who goes through it and reviews it ought to sign off on it. Don't you think? Yeah. That would be a good idea. I mean, those are just simple things that would, then if there's any question, you can go then back to whoever signed off on it and ask them what they saw. Or like somebody like myself could go to them with a concern. Well, this is what I'm looking at. What do you think? And they can explain it to me. There's just, this shouldn't be such an adversarial thing. And then I just want to remind you all that the manure management plan is the basis for the management of CAPOs and feedlots and the management of their byproducts. That's the basis. So if you're not going to take care of the basis very well, that's when we get into all these impaired waterways and who's to blame, back and forth business. So you have to take the manure management plan seriously. It's not just a document that you toss over to the board of supervisors who then tosses it to the field office. It should be taken very seriously in each county. And I would like to point out that we only did 5 counties, and if you took those results, which Bill said were minimal, I'm not arguing with Bill, but anyway, but if you multiply it by 20, that equals your 99 counties. So you really have to take those results and assume that there's a 20% multiplier there too, or probably 20% multiplier. So it should be taken very seriously. And then last, to speak in reference to the Iowa beef producer spokesperson, the one gal talked about Dan and Abby and Todd Tyler, and then I didn't catch the other names, but that they are very good managers, and I'm not here to argue about that whatsoever. I myself am a 4th generation family farmer. My husband does a great job. We have the filter strips, we have the grass waterways, we have the whole 9 yards, and no-tills, everything. The guy across the road is called Allendan, if you've ever heard of Allendan Corporation. From Winterset, they have, I don't know how far east, all the land that they farm, but they also farm across the road from us. That ditch across the road from my window gets deeper and deeper every year. They have a slope this steep across the road down a little ways. And that grass waterway was torn out, and it gets deeper and deeper
deeper and deeper every year. That's your corporate. So, just to give that comparison, yes, there are family farmers that are doing a wonderful job, and I've said this before, somebody isn't. And that's the person we're looking for. Somebody isn't, multiple somebody's aren't. Bruce, may move on. But thank you for your time here today, and maybe I can go on with your management. Yes,
I'm Jess Manure from Des Moines, proud member of Iowa CCI, and just started working on what I wanted to say as I listened to your guys' response. So, might seem a little bit over the place, but it just kind of seems like the DNR is operating in a world as it should be and not the world as it is. One of those presentations talked about soil, or about manure and how it builds up soil, but that's not what's happening. We have record soil loss. Maybe that's the perfect model, but that's not what's happening. We can't just look at these models and ignore what the reality is.
Right.
When we're looking at manure management plan, it's considered average to lose 5 tons per acre per year of soil. That's not building soil. We have 22 billion gallons of manure. Yes, it is a good resource or a good nutrient for the soil, but not when there's too much of it. 22 billion gallons. With commercial fertilizer, you only buy what you need. Manure you have to empty your pit, whether the land needs it or not.
That's right. That's right.
This manure is being treated as a waste, not as a nutrient.
That's right.
It seems that DNR continues to make excuses for the factory farm industry. When there were documents missing or incorrect information found, you found an excuse for every single one of those instances. In the world as it is, our water is polluted. Your own impaired waterways report lists E. coli as one of the leading causes of polluted waterways. That doesn't come from commercial fertilizer, that comes from poop. It comes from factory farm manure. The world as it is that there are problems with it. It also seems that the DNR does not seem to be taking this seriously. When we talk about double dumping, when multiple factory farms are spraying on one field, and when we talk about P-index, we asked you to do those calculations because those records are private information. We do not have access to them. You refused to do the calculations. You said it's safe to assume that because manure is a valuable nutrient, that they're not over-applying. Well, then why is our water polluted? Why is there so much soil loss? We asked you to do those calculations. Prove to us that it's not correct, or that it is correct. You didn't even do the calculations. You can't say that there isn't a problem. Manure is entering our water. That is a fact. We have record number of toxic algae blooms. That's caused by phosphorus. You can't say the P-index isn't a problem. In the world as it is, we have phosphorus in our water. It's coming from something. It's coming from factory farm manure. What we've heard is that when the DNR does do checks of the manure management plan, specifically in the P-index, that they check the outputs of the equation to make sure it calculates correctly. Check the inputs. In Jefferson County, everyone that's been filed a complaint has been found to be correct, that it's wrong. Like the JCAN, who filed the complaint, is correct that application rates are wrong based on P-index. If you would have done any of the calculations we asked you to do, you may have found the same thing, but you refused to do that. We've also heard that some DNR inspections are only 30 minutes long, on-site inspections. There's no way you're checking manure application records in 30 minutes. What about your Google Earth inspections? Are you checking manure application records on your Google Earth inspections? You have to be on-site to do that. So no, I don't think that there is an adequate review of manure management plan happening. There's too much manure, plain and simple. 22 billion gallons of manure in Iowa. And I don't think you have the political will to regulate this industry. You continue to make excuses, you look the other way. If you look at the world as it is, not the world as it should be, the world as it is we have a problem. Our water is polluted. We have record number of toxic algae blooms, high nitrates, drinking water is not safe, record soil loss, corporate ownership of most of Iowa farmland.
Close up to the surface.
They're destroying our rural economy. They're destroying property values. We have a problem, and you guys continue to make excuses.
Thank you. Yay!
Hello, my name is Aaron Wagner. I'm a member of Iowa CCI. I'm also a member of Power Sheet Cares. That map you saw going to County, Power Sheet County, and Power Sheet Cares it's just gone too far. I mean, my understanding, if you've seen the documentary, but, the state of North Carolina, counterpart hog producer, has placed a moratorium on the proliferation of farmers. A lot of those companies are now setting up shop in Iowa. We have no teeth in Iowa to do anything about the continued proliferation. And as bad as it is now, among the worst water quality in the nation, we need to project into the future and to see that this problem is only going to compound and continue to get worse. And I'm not an expert on this matter, despite my hippie winter beard. I'm a city slicker. But by working with how she cares, I can talk to you about Joyce Otto, about Harvey McElrath. I wish you'd sit down and talk with them, because they live within a mile of these confinements, and they have children, they have families, and they're taking their children and their families to the hospital repeatedly, respiratory problems that, are $1,000,000 words of medical conditions that I'm not even prepared to speak to right now. And, we're beyond the point of PowerPoint presentations. And, my limited understanding of this issue, is if the MPPs are in compliance, then, the problem is that the requirements aren't stringent enough. And, I think this isn't an issue, I hope this isn't an issue of CCI versus the EPC and the DNR. I think part of the problem is that you folks, I think you're all well-meaning. I don't think you have the teeth, legally, legislatively, to really do anything about this. County supervisors don't have the teeth to do anything. The EPA doesn't have the teeth to do anything. And so, I think in the long run, we need to, CCI has put together its information, you've countered back, but, this needs to be an ongoing dialogue, so that we're working together in the long run and recognizing that this problem has gone way beyond control, and it needs to be addressed. And again, it can't be addressed by a PowerPoint presentation. It can't be addressed by thinking that the status quo is okay. And I think we need to continue this dialogue. We need to keep coming back with the data that we can each, provide. And then ultimately, we need to go to the legislature together, and we need to enact some laws that give you all the teeth that you need to do, the job that I think, with good intentions you all want to do. So, we need a way, for you to help us, to help you, to help us, to help you.
Danielle Worth, and following Danielle will be Tyler Benton.
Good morning, I'm Danielle Worth from Southern Boone County. I am a proud member of CCI. Thank you for your time today. I can't drink my well water. I crossed the Des Moines River 3 times to get here, and it's foaming. It is foaming because of excrement that is in the water. The dragonflies and the otters do not cause that water pollution. Children cannot safely swim, play, or wade in most of Iowa's surface water. The DNR is not doing its job, nor do I believe it is intended to do its job. I want to help you do your job. I used to work for the DNR. I work for the Environmental Protection Commission for the DNR. I know the challenges that field people face. I do not disagree with Dr. Anderson's model or explanation of soil microbe health, soil tilth, and how organic matter, including manure, can contribute to soil health. What I do disagree with is that this model is not part of the reality of Iowa's landscape. This model is fiction, except on organic farms, where I am a happy member of 2 organic farms in Iowa. There I see soil tilth and health maintained. I also hear that this is a carefully managed industry, that land stewardship is abundant. And we heard from individuals who represent several thousand people standing behind me, and I speak for the 3.2 million people in Iowa who want you to do your jobs. Environmental Protection Commission, where is the protection for Iowa's environment? If this is a carefully managed system, and we are managing this with laws that are in place, and ladies and gentlemen, the law is an ass, the law must be changed. It is not protecting Iowa's health and wealth and commonwealth of natural resources. Are there farmers who are inspected once a year at these large CAFOs? What is the inspection method? I'm aware that organic farmers are inspected once a year, and the inspection takes hours, and those organic farmers are charged a lot of money for those inspections. If they have organic cows, or sheep, or goats, or chickens, or pigs, they're charged by the head. So if at earlier meetings we hear that the DNR can't do its job because it doesn't have enough money, let's get you the money you need. Let's switch the inspection system so that we are charging those people involved in that industry what it costs to do adequate inspections. That's a ground truth thing, that's spending the time necessary to make sure that those places are functioning properly. I want the DNR to do its job, regardless of how we may argue in the past. I have deep affection for the DNR and for the job that the field staff do. What's it? Thank you.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank each of you for your continued service to this commission in the state of Iowa. You all were chosen by the governor to sit on this commission and carefully evaluate research, facts, and creative opportunities for continuous improvement of our air, water, and soil resources. We very much appreciate DNR's thorough review of the outline manure management plan concerns and the other presentations that you've heard here today. Manure provides a very strong fertilizer value and includes advantages for improved soil health and builds on the sustainable cycle of pork production, which is a perfect fit for Iowa. Iowa pork producers recognize this advantage and through MMPs and other best management practices strive to achieve this optimal value for crop production. The Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy Science Assessment also cites an average 4% reduction in nitrate loss when using swine manure in comparison to commercial fertilizer. I must point out, and as you've heard some already today, manure is regulated in Iowa. Producers must meet these requirements for certification and apply manure and do so based on these manure management plans and crop needs. Additionally, it is already against the law for manure from a confinement to reach a body of water. We are confident that the ongoing inspections from DNR will continue to demonstrate these benefits of total manure containment in our production systems. IPPA emphasizes an educated, passionate, and proactive board committed to continuous industry improvement in multiple areas, including manure and environmental management. We have seen new application technology moving from surface application to injection, and building design moving from outdoor mountain farms to total manure containment. Just a couple examples of industry advancements in the last 20 to 30 years, both of which have provided improved manure utilization and environmental management. New technologies and practices will continue to drive progress in these areas for all of agriculture. IPPA members have established policy supporting the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy and have committed their own investments to efforts that can aid in neighbor relations and improve quality of our natural resources. By supporting the Nutrient Reduction Strategy, enhancing our water quality initiative project efforts, and building on efforts with the Iowa Ag Water Alliance and the Coalition to Support Iowa's Farmers, there is strong momentum and opportunity within our commodity organizations and others to drive progress for continuous improvement and practice adoption. Iowa is visualized as a leader to many with how we are addressing and owning this challenge in our state. IPPA and the Iowa pork producers maintain their commitment to research, education, and producer engagement to continue driving this environmental improvement in our industry. Again, I thank you for your continued service to this commission and Iowa's natural resources. Take me a few seconds. Please be patient.
In the old days, Jack Troger, Ames, retired science teacher. My credo, earth first, and things, thoughts, deeds, decisions. I truly believe it. I don't just say it. I can't live it because I'm surrounded by a society that doesn't believe it, doesn't want anything to do with it. They're invested in money, profit, capitalism, and everything else that goes along with it. I came here with a script today. I taught 30 years, never once used a note in the classroom, never once used a script in the classroom. This is incredibly difficult for me to do now because I am full of geezer goo. No. But more than anything, you have got to hear this. This is the only flag that I fly. It is the only flag for which I will die. Please don't do that. It takes away from memory. I live for Earth. The Lorax spoke for the trees. I speak for Earth and all species. I have spent my entire life since childhood. I don't even have a memory of not doing this, studying, loving Earth. I have a master's degree in geology. I know where all the good stuff is. Yeah, my classmates are worth tens of millions of dollars down in Houston, Texas now. I was a high school science teacher. I got nothing. My wife and I live on next to nothing. It's okay. It's all right because that is Earth. Notice it's all tattered and torn like Earth. I could go out and buy another one. You can't go out and buy a new Earth. You can't hope for a new Earth. You can't wish for a new Earth and get one. And sure as the Dickens, Abbey, and Twain, hope some of you figured that one out, can't pray for a new one. This is it. Your only home. By the way, I'm astronomer. I've spent my entire life looking for other intelligent life. Spent my whole life looking for intelligent life in the universe. This is it. See, this is what happens. That's why I can't teach anymore. We'll use 10 billion gallons. 10 billion of those, 22 billion is numbers flopping around today. 10 billion is conservative. 10 billion of those. Every time you take a drink of water, each and every one of you, every time you take a drink of water, think about it. How much is 10 billion? How much is 10 billion? How many times would this building be filled up with 10 billion gallons of manure? 20,000 times. I had planned a script that said, each and every one of you take your hometown, visualize your hometown covered with 10 billion gallons of manure. Yes. No excuses. No exceptions. No more compromises. Do it!
I didn't get a chance to get here early. I would like to speak because I have evidence that you guys are covering in your emails from your Manchester office with pictures. And you don't want to hear it, do you? Because it's here. Your office is covered it up and they lie. And it's here, physically. Why do you not want to hear the truth?
We can stay and listen to you.
Yeah, we'll listen.
We'll listen to you.
Where's your job? Do we, the people, we pay for you people to represent us. It is our country. My father, I'm a farmer. He says we are stewards of God's land. This isn't our land. It's God's land. But we're just here to take care of it. Why do you walk away from the truth? We found multiple manure management problems. Tom McCarthy. But we're not justifying him. This man has 5 million gallons of manure. Here's the pictures. He applied it on top of the ground. December 7th. Today it still is not incorporated.
That's right.
Our children deserve more than 3 minutes of your time.
Preach it.
There's a real simple way to fix a lot of this. These people, you can afford to build it. You can afford to pay for the people that take care of it. You charge them so much a head per year to manage it for the DNR, etc., EPA to come out. If they have an offense the first time, you fine them. If they have a second offense, you shut them down for 30, 60 days. If they have a third offense, you put them out of business. That building is shut down. That solves your problem, because then they will say, well, we got a foul. The other thing is, you allow this person to do what this guy did, where he took $5 million, threw it on top of the ground. That tells every other farmer it's okay because he can do it. They're not going to do nothing to him.
That's right.
Am I wrong?
Repeat offenders.
Here, let me read. My name's Ron. Ron, thanks for letting us know. Staff from this office went around Thursday and again Friday and found some MMP violations. Working with Jim to get them corrected. Talked to Jim this morning. He reworked the ground within 750 feet of the home. Well, I got pictures. He worked 100 feet. 750. They didn't go. They were out there, but they can't count 750 feet. Everybody knows the difference between 100 foot and 750 foot.
That's right.
This man, he didn't want to apply for a water permit. He built his own master matrix plan. And it was taking like, how was it? Like 10 million gallons a day, a year. But he applied for a 996,000 gallon a year for 1,200 head of fat cattle. Wow, do the math on that one times 365. Well, he says, I don't know how to do it. I said to Tom McCarthy, I says, it says the depth of your well, size of your pump, the number of animal units you're feeding, and how deep your well is. I says, if a man can do a master matrix like that, what is so hard about filling out a simple report like that? I says, your well driller just gave it to him when he built the building. But he didn't want to spend the $350. There's a lot of good operators out there, and I'm not trying to condemn them. Yesterday, I live between this, and I go down and I pass my waterway, and there's a dam. There's foam, and I got pictures of it. That was a foot high. I called Tom about it. Oh, it's too late today to come out and look at it. I said to Tom, I said, you know what, but I got the pictures, and I'm coming to Des Moines tomorrow. And that's the way you guys walked out. You don't want to hear the truth, do you? Anyhow, I says, Tom, I says, if you go to 5835 Jessup Road, you can see all the evidence. I says, pictures don't lie. And I said, yes, I understand you cannot be all over. But this guy sets a bad image. And he makes your job harder, and he makes life tough for the rest of us, too. It'd be a lot simpler if you just do your job and enforce the law. Here's what Tom says. Please send me the locations where Toma did not incorporate the manure. 911 addresses would be best. The environmental services is different from fish and wildlife enforcement. They can write tickets, normally in hundreds of dollars. ESD fines in thousands. Normally a first-time manure application violation does not receive fines unless there's fish kill or significant water qualification. This is coming from your DNR office. I do not know Jim personally, but I only know him from a DNR inspection and many phone calls. Here's some of your pictures. Here's the foam coming down from the
Can I get closer to those, please?
you can see, okay, that's kind of hard to see, but here's the house, here's the guy's house, and that house is probably 200 feet off the road. Here's where the grounds work, the line there. That's 750 feet. That house, does that look 750 feet from the road?
Nope.
And here's the packs. Here's his tracks where he went through, and there was water standing there yesterday. The water coming over, here's a better picture. He didn't incorporate it. He did this December 7th. Yesterday was December 14th. He has a manure management plan that calls for it within 24 hours. Here's more of the same pictures. Well, I'm only speaking the truth.
I know you are. So do I.
Yes, you did. You did a very good job.
I have to leave. I'm sorry.
I said, Tom, I says, if you're a juror and heard and seen what you got here, I says, if you would like, I says, you'd be, wow. Wow, from that. Okay, then Tom says, please email information, location, quarter township, date and time of application, method of application. This comes from Tom McCarthy, the DNR. Method of application looks like surface application without incorporation. Manure, give me the manure source. Swine or cattle? Thanks. Tom McCarthy, environmental specialist, senior.
Do you have one of these drawings, Chris?
No fine. But we the people have to live, deal, and suffer because of an operator like him. I says, have you heard me complain about any other operators? No. I says, they're good operators, they follow the rules and respect their neighbors. I says, this guy has violated, and you have covered him for him long enough. It is time for him to be a fine. If you give him a fine, he's going to change. If you let him keep doing it, he's not ever going to change. I got a story in here too. 20 years ago. It was the 20th of June. It was a wet year, 1993, 22. I was coming from Dumbarton, Iowa. It was 7 o'clock at night. There was a raccoon sitting on the side of the road. There was a kid 300 feet ahead of him. I swerved over because that 4 cars went by that coon. And never moved. And yeah, I killed it. It went kaput. I got stopped by the police, sheriff, and he says, the DNR is coming out tomorrow? Sure tell. The DNR come out tomorrow. Did you run over a coon last night? I said, yes, I did. You got a hunting license? No. You got a first stamp? No. Well, he says it's $57 for the no hunting license, $65 for the no first stamp, and $200 to restock that coon. I said, that coon was sick. I said, anybody knows 7 o'clock at night, first day of summer, a raccoon is not going to sit on the side of the road and there's kids there. He says, I tell you what, I'll throw part of it out if you go to court tomorrow. So I went to court the next day, and I was upset, and I had something I wanted to say, but I kept it to myself. Anyhow, the judge says, how do you plead? And I said, guilty. And she started laughing. I said, Your Honor, I don't find a thing funny about this. She says, I'm sorry, but I've been on this bench 22 years, and this is the first time I've ever had anyone in my courtroom for running over a raccoon. The DNR did these fines. But yet this man, he can build a 1,200-egg castle right on the top of my home, and we live down in a house, hydrogen sulfide. The sheriff's department was out there. He went in my basement the night this guy hauled this manure, and he says, let's get out of here. This is inhabitable. And we have that on proof. He has it on his body camera. But you guys do not react to it. You just let it go. But I run over a sick coon so these kids don't get bit by it and rabies and everything else, and you find me $200 for it. Do your goddamn job! What you're paid for! Get off your duck! Am I? I'll leave. I mean, because it's obvious you don't like it.
Okay, no, we'll help you. We have staff.
I just picked up.
You're gonna get that on camera.
Where'd he go? Out that door? Oh shoot, I don't even know which way they went. I think they went back out that way. No, I hear them. I think there may be a rest.
question. I'll be civil about it, because you can give me an honest answer. I'll be civil, I'll be civil. Why are they not doing anything about it? This man's not getting fined. Yeah, they investigate him. If everything I say here is true, and I know it is, but it, let's just say, why are you ignoring it?
I've read through all the reports, and it's not conclusive as to what the findings are.
I just talked to Tom right before I pulled in the parking lot. We're still looking. There's another place where he hauled manure where he didn't have on his manure management plan. But they're not gonna, Tom says they're not gonna fine him.
We're working on the compliance issue.
You will be fining him because I'm not.
Thanks.
No,
thanks. Thank you. No, appreciate you guys for coming in. Okay, so then you're gonna give us some more questions and we'll get it back to you. Yeah, no, good.
I'm just clapping my tripod.
Perfect. All right, good. Thanks. All right, we'll see you. Thanks again.
Are you guys going back to the office?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wanna go back
I
there?
can meet you back.
You know where that is?
Because I want to show you some of this stuff
I know
in here.
you're angry, we all know that.
No. It just got to the point that they walked away and they're cowards, and that just.
Yeah.
Because I had the facts.
CCI?
I've contributed, I've been a member. I don't know if I'm an active member anymore or not. You'd have to look it up, but.
You know that, just to slow it up a bit, is that I think,
I'm gonna head back to meet other people
Yeah, go
there, but
ahead.
we'll
I'll
see you
catch you
back
there.
there at the office.
I think now you have my attention, but after that, I went
I'm gonna go and take my stream down because I'm pretty much done here. So, I'm gonna head back to the CCI office. Thanks for watching, and we're